Welcome. Today, we're going to break down two really foundational patterns that are, frankly, essential for building smarter and more reliable AI systems. We're talking about prompt chaining and routing. So let's kick things off with a problem that I am sure we've all faced. You've got this complex, multi-part task, you feed it to an AI, and what you get back is, well, pretty much nonsense. It might get one little piece right, but it totally botches the rest. And this right here, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You're asking the AI to juggle, what, four different jobs all at once? And that kind of cognitive overload, it often leads to something called instruction neglect, which is just a fancy way of saying the model gets overwhelmed and just ignores parts of your prompt. The result is almost always incomplete or just plain wrong. And that right there gets to the absolute heart of the issue. A single giant prompt is basically an all-or-nothing gamble. It's brittle. But what if you break that same task into a sequence of smaller, more focused prompts? Well, that gives you control, it gives you reliability, and you get way, way higher quality results. So how do we actually build out that sequence? We're going to start with our first building block, a pattern called prompt chaining. And honestly, the best way to picture this is like a digital assembly line for your AI tasks. The whole idea is just beautifully simple. You take a big, messy problem, and you slice it into these manageable subtasks. The AI does the first task, and then its output, the result of that first step, becomes the direct input for the second task. And that feeds the third, and so on and so on. It's this clean, step-by-step process. Okay, let's circle back to our report analysis example from earlier. With chaining, we can set up a whole workflow. So for step one, we tell the AI to act like a market analyst, whose only job is to summarize the report. That's it. For step two, the AI puts on a new hat. It's a trade analyst now, and it takes that summary, and only that summary, to pull out the key trends. And finally, for step three, an expert writer takes those trends and drafts the email. You see, each step is laser-focused and builds on the work of the one before it. And this is exactly what that looks like in action. The user's request kicks off this really clear linear flow. Agent 1 does its job, passes the baton to Agent 2, and it just keeps going down the line until you get the final output. This modular approach isn't just more reliable, it's also a lifesaver when you need to figure out where something went wrong. It's so much easier to debug. And for all of you who write code, you'll love this. Frameworks like LangChain have made this process incredibly elegant. They have something called the LangChain expression language, where you can literally use these pipe symbols to pipe components together. It's a seriously practical and powerful way to build these kinds of robust AI apps. Okay, so the assembly line is fantastic, right? But it's for predictable linear workflows. Its biggest weakness is that it can only go in one direction. So what happens when your AI actually needs to make a decision? When it has to choose between different paths? And that question brings us to our second building block, routing. If chaining is the assembly line, I want you to think of routing as the smart traffic cop who's standing at a fork in the road, directing traffic. So with this model, the system has a central decision maker. The user's prompt comes in, it hits a router, and that router analyzes the request and sends it down the correct path to the right specialist agent for the job. This is really what makes it so powerful. Routing brings conditional logic into the mix. It gives the AI the ability to choose. It lets the system look at a request and dynamically decide which tool, which function, or even which entire chain of prompts is the right one for this specific situation. A customer support bot is the perfect use case for this. You ask a question, and the first thing the routing agent does is figure out what you want. Are you asking about an order? Okay, it routes you to the database tool. Is it a product question? Bam, you're sent to the product catalog agent. Technical issue? It pulls up the support guides. It intelligently triages every single request. Now here's the thing. These two patterns, they aren't mutually exclusive. Not at all. In fact, this is where things get really, really interesting when you start combining them. This is how you start to see truly sophisticated AI behavior emerge. Just imagine this for a second. A system uses a router to first understand your big picture goal. Then, based on whatever that goal is, it triggers the perfect, pre-built assembly line, the exact right prompt chain to handle that specific task from start to finish. Okay, so we've got our two powerful patterns. Let's just boil this all down into a simple toolkit so you know exactly when to reach for each one. At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this. You're going to use prompt chaining for sequential processing. That's your assembly line for predictable step-by-step jobs. And you'll use routing for conditional logic. That's your traffic cop for when a decision has to be made about which way to go. So, by understanding how to combine these two simple but incredibly powerful patterns, the assembly line and the traffic cop, you really have the fundamental building blocks to start creating some of these sophisticated, dynamic, and genuinely useful AI agents. So, the only question left is, what are you going to build?